Hello and welcome to the TechBytes audiocast. My name's Tim and I'm from the TechBytes blogazine, and with me is Dr. Roy Shestowitz from the TechBytes website.
It's Friday night and I'm gonna get sauce. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. He tried to boss me and was outbossed. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. Underneath his creeper bridge, hoping goats will cross. Quoting Ashcroft and Tom Ridge, I fought the troll.
Welcome to the TechBytes audiocast. This is episode 11. Today we're going to be continuing on with our Microsoft FUD and tactics talk that we had on the last episode, and we're also going to look at the few headlines that there were in the world of IT over this weekend. So without further ado, we're going to go over to Gordon and he's going to kick off the debate. And Gordon, if you're there and still well, can you start off the debate?
Yeah, hi. First thing to note is if I suddenly disappear or suddenly go quiet, I'm choked with the cold and I have to get ready to jump on the mute button. So if that's what happens, I do apologise. So to start with, it was basically something that we never got a chance to cover. We're trying to keep these shows down to a reasonable listening length. So and there's just so much and so many different examples to cover. So this was another angle that I thought about as well. And if people remember the 1950s videos that were well parodied, called Reefer Madness. Now, the whole point of Reefer Madness was it was the US government trying to deter young Americans from smoking marijuana. But what they did to try and do it was they created these videos and they showed you like some young man just out of school, well educated, got a lot to live for, perfect sort of homespun, all good American upbringing. You know, he's done well in school, he's got a job, he's got a girlfriend, he's got everything to live for, and then his mate comes along and offers him a smoke of a joint, takes one draw, and he suddenly goes nuts. He starts beating up his girlfriend and racing out of the house and driving recklessly and whatever. And the impression was to scare people into saying, don't touch it. The problem is that when people did try it themselves, they thought, that's not the effect, it's completely overblown. And the whole credibility of the person, in this case the US government, is just completely blown. Now, that's because it does not, people's experiences of it don't match in any shape or form what the image that's been drummed into them is. They see it as propaganda because they've got a chance to try it and experience it themselves. Now, Windows is the same as that. I mean, Microsoft has tried to sell you the image that Linux is only for hardcore IT guys, that you're always going to have to type out commands and nothing works and none of your hardware's going to work and all these things to try and paint the image of Linux as something that you should just stay away from. It's made by amateurs, it's a waste of time, don't even waste your time with it. And no matter what the Linux advocates try to tell you, it's all rubbish. You know, believe us, trust us, we're your friends, you know, you can trust us. And the problem with that is when people get the encouragement, if they've got someone who, their mate, their brother, their dad, their mum, whoever, who has tried Linux and said, look, try this Ubuntu CD or Fedora CD or something, and they try it in live mode, and you're saying, well, I can do all these things. I can watch videos, I can play music, I can, I can install applications at the touch of a button. It's all these things just completely undermine all of the message that Microsoft have been trying to hammer into people. They try to paint the picture that's completely unrealistic of what Linux actually is. If they were more realistic and not quite as over the top, it might actually work. But the fact is, they don't know how to do that. So it helps us, essentially.
I remember the OpenOffice, Microsoft Office video that was made recently, and essentially that was the same type of thing. There was a couple of comments, probably taken out of context, put onto an advert, and its sole purpose was to do exactly what Gordon's just explained, to put a bit of fear, put a bit of doubt into people's minds, to make people think, well, is the risk of me trying another package really worth it? I might as well stick with what I know, and I'll stick with Microsoft. And it's a very clever marketing ploy, especially when a lot of the market isn't tech interested and usually just uses these software packages because they do a task. Sorry, Roy, over to you if you've got anything you would like to...
Of course, it's interesting you mentioned the complexity part of it, because I found, well, in my case, the trolls on my sites would usually pretend to be Linux users. But those who pretend to be Linux users will try to give the impression they're doing very complicated things. So I'm not sure about your site, but we get people pretending to be Gentoo users or pretending to be Debian users and pretending to be very kind of command line based people, which once you check, you find in the logs these people are actually Windows users. They're just faking. And the impression they try to hammer into people's minds, at least the very subversive types, are, I had to struggle to install this thing, or I had to use command lines, and I had to use this very complicated tool to get things to work with Linux. I found this in some of the British so-called technology press, newspapers, magazines. They do try to kind of get dirty with things and to try and find an excuse to use the command line where they don't have to say, install an application. And this gives the impression to people that the stigma of Linux as a very techy platform is a true one. What's really strange to me then is, you find this on the web sometimes, you find these older generation people who are just going into computers, they use Linux and you treat it as an exception, but what I find is people I put on Linux, they don't have to worry about things like security and making the computer faster, as they call it, usually means removing applications because they slow down the system. And this actually shows you how simpler things become for these people. And sometimes what you might find, this is an interesting thing, is that actually the technical people might struggle with Linux because they need specific applications for video editing or for, I wouldn't say programming, but they have to use very professional applications, which usually cost a lot of money. And the people who are just using email and browsing the web, these are the best people you can put on Linux because that's going to suit them well. Which is an interesting thing, because you think that Linux would be the complex platform, the complicated one, but it's actually most suitable for people who do the simplest thing on the computer.
Well, on that, what I've found is when you talk to people who are Windows PC savvy, they're power users on Windows. In a technical sense, they're used to all the hurdles to install drivers, to all the various tricks to get around the things that Microsoft set up. And they have invested an awful lot of time and effort and sometimes money into learning the very specific Windows way. And a lot of the reluctance to even acknowledge Linux is they don't want to have to go back to the level of being another user. All those tricks, all those power tricks that they know are essentially, all the programs they know are Windows only. They're useless to them. I mean, a lot of the knowledge is generic. It can transfer across, like partitions and boot records and stuff like that. But there's an awful lot of it just is Windows only, and it does not apply in Linux. So they hate the idea. They are the sort of the go-to person in their circle where they've got the skills with a Z to show off essentially and fix people's computers. But they go to Linux and they're just another user, and they don't want to have to relearn and invest all of that time and effort again to get back to the same state on a different platform. So rather than do that, it's just anything, don't want to even acknowledge this other thing exists. And if it tries to take off, resist it.
It's a good point, actually. I have I don't think that we have as many GNU plus Linux users as Windows users, that's for sure. But what you do find is there is a certain kind of allergy for when it comes to a person using Linux using a Windows computer, or when a person using Windows come to that person and ask for help. And there is all kinds of aspects of the issue here, and one of them is to do with having to do with no power or no knowledge